everything you say and do. It's all part of a deception. It's a puppet master's tool. And I've seen those craft shut down just beside those from 10 miles away. And there ain't nothing that the Pentagon can do. They can't make them go away.
From Malmstrom to Manhattan, Boston to LA, there are people asking questions and they will not go away. But what has been seen by...
Do you have a paranormal story you want to share on Night Dreams Talk Radio? You could be a guest. Email us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com.
From our compound, from the West Coast to the East Coast to worldwide, both on the internet and terrestrial radio, you're listening to Gary Anderson on Night Dreams Talk Radio After Dark.
And here I am. Hey, William, you still there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm getting used to these new bumper promos for the show that one of the stations did. I never know what to say because they all end different.
Keeps you on your toes, yeah.
Yeah, it does. But, that's the only thing. It makes me wonder, seriously, that, a lot of people can say, well, I don't think people would panic. But I do think because we have been lied to so much, again, we don't know if these UFOs, where they're coming from, what they are. I can honestly tell you this, what I find so interesting. When I started broadcasting back in 76, in the early 80s, I would start getting, phone calls about aliens and UFOs and stuff like that. People would tell me these UFOs were like 25 feet. And then, a couple years later, they were getting like 50 feet and 100 feet. Now the reports are coming on. They're the size of Walmart stores. What do you take about that?
Yeah. My take has always been that if we're experiencing alien visitation, and I believe we are. I don't think it's very common, but I think it has happened. What people are reporting are, I guess it's possible that they're reporting their technology, meaning the aliens' technology. It's a safe assumption. And then I might be totally wrong on this, but that their technology evolves as time goes on, just like ours does. I mean, our aircraft we were flying in the 30s looks substantially different than what we're flying now. So what was being reported in the 40s and 50s, we can safely assume their technology would have improved too. So perhaps they're using different types of, let's use the word aircraft. That's what being sighted. So we've gone from a cigar-shaped craft and saucer-shaped craft and crescent-shaped objects in the 40s and 50s to the classic flying saucer and daylight discs to now what's prevalent is mile-wide constructs and boomerang-shaped objects, triangular-shaped objects like in the famous signs in Belgium in the late 80s. So it's changed. That's a distinct possibility that the visitor's technology has changed with time. And then another aspect of it may be the observational skills of humanity. I mean, humans are not the best observers. You'd ask any policeman. There's a car wreck and you ask 5 individuals what they saw. 5 minutes after the wreck, you get 5 different descriptions. So people aren't really they're not really that good observers. They're not. So there is a little bit of leeway there where they may be mistakenly identifying something that may not be extraterrestrial at all. So it's difficult to actually definitively point out what's going on and to explain what's being seen and why it's being seen in that configuration. But at least I think the stronger cases that remain unexplained that may be extraterrestrial in origin, I would safely assume that perhaps their technology has changed. Therefore, what we're seeing has changed. Maybe as simple as that.
Or maybe that we're being visited by another race of aliens from somewhere else. Because, again, in our own world, we find skeletons of giants, that supposedly have reached as high as, 15 feet tall. So maybe from supposedly the Greys, which are supposedly reported as like around 3 feet or whatever in height, who knows? Maybe it could be a species of humanoids that are like 10, 15 feet tall, which then would require a larger spacecraft. All I can say, what I found it really strange, a friend of mine who's no longer with us, Art Bell. I knew Art pretty well. And, he's the one that got me out of retirement back into radio here back a little over 2 years ago. I remember when he had his sighting of a UFO, him and Lamona, out of his compound. He called me up that night, and the first thing he said, he was skeptical about UFOs, by the way. He didn't believe in them. Now, just because you talk about it on the show and you have interview people, he flatly did not believe in UFOs. Till he saw one himself kind of float by, his back porch. And he stared at it, and he reported it as a big, huge triangle thing. And he said it was a couple 100 feet in diameter, and it made absolutely no sound. And it traveled very slowly, and then poof, it was gone.
It's so hard to wrap our head around what's being seen. I mean, certainly, I've never seen a UFO. I've never experienced anything anomalous in my life. But it clearly affects the individual. People I've collected sighting reports from, they described how they treated what they saw of the Enigma before. Then they had their sighting, and it's a life-changing experience. Regardless of whether they saw something extraterrestrial or not, regardless of what the ultimate origin was, they experienced something anomalous that changed their point of view. It changed the way they thought about the surroundings. It changed their thought process about the world around them and the potentials out there. It's a fascinating prospect because it's another part of the world around us that really affects us as human beings, as a species. I mean, if we are able to prove that we're not alone and we're not the only intelligent species on the planet, in the universe, that's a species-defining moment, almost like when we landed on the moon. It would change the narrative completely. We haven't proven it yet, but the data at times with the stronger cases is strongly suggestive of something non-terrestrial in origin. So I keep using the word fascinating. I apologize for keep using that word.
No, that's okay. But, I will say this. Out there, the solar system and other solar systems, the galaxy and stuff like that, we would have to be so naive if we, and vain, and I use the word vain there, to think that we are the only humanoids. We're the only planet it has technology. I just find that people have that attitude are the same people that would stick their head in the sand if anything ever happened, because they're so closed-minded.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean the numbers dictate. Science dictates to us what we can really safely assume, and we know now there are billions of planets and billions, uncounted number of stars. So from a numerical standpoint, we can't be alone. We can't be the only technologically advanced species. We can't be. What we can't prove definitively yet is have they come here. But it's very arrogant to think that we're the only living species that's advanced in the entire universe. That's very arrogant. But a lot of humans do think along those lines. And can we disprove their belief system? No, we don't have a craft yet. We don't have a body yet. But just from a high school science class should be able, what the kids learn there should be able to teach you and convince you that we're not alone, because there's so many other planetary bodies out there. The chances of us being alone in the universe are pretty much zero. We have to. There's other species out there. we don't know anything about them, but they've got to be out there. So you're absolutely right. It's a very arrogant, closed-minded approach to even entertain the thought that we're alone in the universe. No, that's unreasonable.
I know. And what I find, too, now James is out there. He's my cohort. James, are you still there?
Absolutely. I'm still here.
Well, you know, he posted today, he posted an article up on Facebook about cattle mutilation, and somebody responded. The first response was, it's military black ops. I had to respond, why would the military go and take people's cattle or bulls, right, and mutilate them and remove all the stuff from them when they could have their own herd of animals? They don't need to go to some ranch and do an experiment and do all this stuff. It doesn't make logical sense. And people, again, are so narrow-minded on this here. They it's always the government. It's always the government. I don't think the government has anything to do with it, at least on the majority of them.
You know, it's difficult to pin down an explanation. So I don't have to really have to do anything with the military angle, but it's difficult to make one definitive conclusion from the data. The trouble I have with the cattle mutilation scenario is that I've spoken to other individuals in the community that are more enamored toward the alien explanation. It's extraterrestrials doing these things to these cattle. And my question was, my first thought is, they should be able to learn everything they would need to know about a lower form of mammal from one animal. If they're that advanced, why would they have to do this several hundred times?
Well, I got an answer. I got something most people don't think about. You know, in China, in Japan, you know the penis from a bull is worth at least $5,000. Now, I'm just using that $5,000 thing because it's very high in demand. Now, these cattle are being mutilated. Certain things are being removed from them, including all their blood is being pumped out of them. Maybe it isn't they're experimenting. Maybe they want certain key parts from these cattle, and maybe it for some reason, we don't know what the reason is. But I can tell you this, a pathologist here just a week ago was talking about these cattle mutilations. It happened recently in Oregon, that whatever is going on, he said they're not being taken and being laid on their side when all this stuff is happening to them. At the start, whatever is going on, these cattle are standing up when the eyes are removed and certain things are being removed. They're alive. They're not, they're suffering. They're in pain. And the reason why he said that, because if you remove the eyes, you have liquid behind your eyes from the brain. He said that, quote, the proof is that the liquid ran down to the nostrils, which now means that the animal had to be standing up. Otherwise, it would have ran off the side of the face.
I don't know. I'm uncomfortable with any definitive explanation. I don't know, because there's so many what ifs, so many things we don't know about what's going on, or if it is alien in origin, if the extraterrestrials are doing this, nobody here on the planet knows why. We don't know why. We don't know the motivations. Would it be, collection of samples for whatever means? We don't know. We just have the data as to what's going on, but no idea why. It's a symptom of the entire phenomenon. We have a lot of guesswork, and we can make some informed assumptions and some speculations about what may or may not be going on, but nobody knows. And that's the interesting part. That's the fun part of it, because we can all have conversations about it. But it's the frustrating part, because I can't think of another field of study where there's so many unknown variables. So many unknown variables. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if an answer ever comes to light concerning cattle mutilations.
Well, how about human mutilations? Now, I had a ex-government agent with the CIA.